My purpose for speaking today is to talk to you about doing social good using technology and design, and how to do that effectively. So, I run my own design and technology company called Disabilities, where we disable disabilities. And I'd like to let you in on one of the first steps in trying to make true social impact in any less privileged community. And although this might sound a little bit unconventional because TED is all about ideas worth spreading, that the first thing that I want to talk about is an idea that's not worth spreading, and that is sympathy. Sympathy is an idea that is not worth spreading. So, I just want a show of hands of how many people have actually shared such images on social media. Anyone? And how about this one? Your excuse is invalid. Or the most popular one, this one. The only disability in life is a bad attitude. You see, what these images try to do is try to spur you on to do better. But what they are not telling you is the entire truth. You see, they form a larger collective of what we call inspiration porn, which is the objectification of disability for the benefit of non-disabled people, and is largely warping our perception of what disability is. So to quote the late disability activist Stella Young, she says that it propagates a lie sold to society that disability is a bad thing, and that living with one makes you exceptional. And so, when we see images like this, we think, well, if they are able to do it, then I better be able to do it too. And the reason for that is because subconsciously at the back of our minds, we believe ourselves to be more capable than persons with disabilities because we don't see them as equals. And when we place ourselves on a higher pedestal, it is always going to be much harder to connect with people at other levels. So when we look at the same image, we sympathize. And I'd like you to think of all the times that you've sympathized with someone, and how did that make you feel? See, sympathy is actually a bad feeling to have because it has an unspoken nature of superiority hidden behind other emotions. Because most of the time when we sympathize with someone, we normally feel that we are in a better position than the person that we are consoling. So I'd like to introduce a different concept instead, which is empathy. So empathy is looking at the same image and thinking, how did he do that? What kind of adaptations did he make? And how come I know so little about another group of people? Questions that pique interest and curiosity, and inadvertently brings you closer to a group of people that you've never met. So instead of spreading the idea of sympathy, I would implore all of you today to talk about and spread the idea of empathy instead. So the difference between sympathy and empathy can sometimes be very vague and sometimes really confusing, but I'll just break it down for you. And it's really very simple. Sympathy is about feeling for someone, and that's about it. But empathy is actually doing something about it to try and understand and befriend, care, and empower. And that is the first step in trying to make changes and truly understand communities that you want to serve, even before you think about doing any social good. Right? So why do I advocate to spread empathy? As the saying goes, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. You see, when we view persons with disabilities with sympathy, we immediately believe that they are not capable to fish for themselves, even if we taught them how to. And as such, we don't. We choose to feed them every single day because we believe that that is easier. But that is the kind of lazy thinking that has left society with much more work to do downstream. On the other hand, if we took time out right at the start and put a bit more effort to understanding persons with disabilities in terms of the way they function and the way they live, then maybe we could teach them to fish in so many ways that we ourselves may not even yet know how. And that is the state of disability in society today. where we choose to engage in stopgap measures instead of long-term planning. And this has a name, the social model of disability, where persons with disabilities are more disabled by society than by their bodies. And the truth is, people are born differently abled, not disabled. But it's in the way that society was constructed that renders them disabled instead, because there was minimal inclusion. And so, you may not know this now, but your thoughts, actions, likes, and shares on disability is actually shaping the way we look at disability as society. So my job here today is to advocate about how to learn and talk about disability effectively. And that it is not just an idea worth spreading, but it's an idea that we need to spread now. So when I speak to others about disability, I always get very common reactions like that it's so hard to relate to, or that there's such a steep learning curve, or that there are many different types of disabilities, and why does it even matter to me? Now, what if I told you that it will matter to you at some point in your life? Like, did you know that everyone has a 25% chance in acquiring a disability before retirement? Or that although 1 in every 7 people in the world live with a disability, that the number of people that are affected by disability is way larger. Think of all the friends, family members, loved ones, and caregivers involved. And it is also important to note that while you might see yourself at the other end of the spectrum, distant from disability, that this minority, it is a rolling minority, meaning to say that you or a loved one could be a part of this minority at some point. And so people currently only learn about disability in a deeper way when they or a loved one acquires a disability. And by then, it's normally so late where everything that they read up on becomes a frantic mess. On what are the best practices, what are the best technologies, are there specialists I should see, is there a solution in my country, is there a solution halfway around the world? And all in order to cope with disability. And I emphasize on the word cope, because if we had more time to learn about disability, which we do if we start now, then we would be embracing it instead. So start today and start early. Read an article or two about disability and talk about it. And so, when I was 17, I had this dream of disabling disabilities. And along the way, I picked up skills in design, engineering, entrepreneurship, and started my own company, Disabilities, a design and technology company that builds products that level the playing field for persons with disabilities, be it at work, home, school, or at play. And after 7 years, I think I've come up with a comprehensive way to disable disabilities through a set of principles that I wish to share with you today. Now, the first principle is one that I've already touched on extensively, which is the difference between sympathy and empathy, as well as how to make the switch. And it's a daring leap of faith that I challenge all of you to make, because once we get there, the transition to empowerment, the stage where we see persons with disabilities having the confidence to build solutions not just for themselves, but for others, is within closer reach. And the second principle is what I like to call meet me halfway, a balance between a top-down approach and a ground-up initiative. And this is especially effective for implementing wider solutions. So, since the longest time ever, persons with disabilities have looked towards the government and larger corporations in empowering their communities. And while this approach might be pragmatic and resourceful, it can sometimes have too many assumptions or a wide disconnect with the ground that may then lead to inaccurate solutions or missing out on the most significant problems to solve. On the other hand, persons with disabilities have long had the aspirations to solve the problems that they face and do it effectively and accurately, but they lack the resources and expertise to make that happen. So what we at Disabilities do is we move both camps incrementally close to each other until they meet halfway, and we can throw out all the cons and focus solely on the pros. So, we run a series of design activities and workshops that we call Disabilities Lab, where we solve for only the most significant problems and interesting ones in various disability communities, and work on it for months on end in order to create viable solutions that have been tested both technically and in the community. And by then, it's normally ready for implementation. But for the solutions that need wider implementation, we then pass this on to larger organizations who have the resources and authority to make it happen. And this actually allows us to get more solutions solved rather than approaching authorities with a blank slate and a problem in hand. And the most beautiful interactions that happen during our sessions is actually between the participants, where we have designers, engineers, persons with disabilities, and people from all walks of life who are treated as equal participants with equal opinions in trashing out problems and ideating on solutions. Now, 80% of our non-disabled participants tell us that they have never interacted much with persons with disabilities, and are glad that we brought them together. And also in the process of building solutions, we are never one to shy away or shelter persons with disabilities from doing the hard work. We empower them with new skills and knowledge in things like design thinking, prototyping, and other effective problem-solving skills, in hopes that they can have the confidence to then take these skills and apply it in other areas where they have other problems that they can solve. And the third principle is really the crux of what my company is all about: building innovative and universally designed solutions. So, technology for persons with disabilities, or assistive technology as we call it, has been around since the start of time. But because it is seen mainly more as a need as opposed to a want, that the industry incumbents can sometimes afford to be complacent, lazy, and sometimes even downright exploiting. And with that, the reason is very simple. And it's because it is a very small and niche market that has very little profit motivation in order to lower the cost and increase innovation. So how we as disabilities circumvent this problem is through the implementation of universal design, which does two things. Firstly, if assistive technology products could provide value to everyone, maybe more people would get them, and then we could leverage on economies of scale to lower the prices. And secondly, if people started to use the same products, we could break down the stigmatization of disability and assistive devices. And the best companies of today, Apple, Microsoft, and even Nike, are all leveraging on universal design because it does make business sense. You essentially open up your audience and your market to now include persons with disabilities and their inner circles. So, I've shared many reasons why I chose to disable disabilities. But the main underlying reason is simple, and that is, in the never-ending chase for success and progress, we have left persons with disabilities behind. We have built tall skyscrapers, but left ramps in hard-to-find corners. We have built up the internet and amazing softwares, but failed in making it accessible to the visually impaired and the blind. We have an abundance of choice for headphones, but only two kinds of solutions for the hearing impaired. And this has to stop. We need to control our urge to make things easier for those already that have it easy, and instead focus our attention on making things possible for those that have it tough. Disabling disabilities is all about unlocking human potential. And it is a human right that we need to get right. And it's time to bring our worlds closer together, not as multiple separate camps, but by marrying them into one inclusive society. Well, there's a lot more that we have to do, and you can be a part of it. So start small by talking to the guy in the wheelchair in your neighborhood, or that deaf guy at work, and get to know them first. And then maybe brainstorm with them wacky ideas on how to make their environment better. Just remember to do it with empathy and not sympathy. So, no one said that this journey was going to be easy. But if there are enough of us around who truly want to make a difference, maybe we could truly disable disabilities. Thank you.